Hey everyone, ready for a deep dive?
Always ready.
Well, buckle up, because today we're going all electric, diving deep into the new Mercedes-Benz G Class.
The G-Wagon.
The one and only, but this time with a twist.
An electric twist.
Exactly. And you guys sent us a ton of stuff articles, a whole YouTube video transcript, even some handwritten notes.
Looks like we've got a case of G-Wagon fever out there.
So our mission, if we choose to accept it, is to find out what makes this electric G-Wagon so special. You know how it stays true to that G-Class legacy? And does it actually live up to all the hype?
All right, let's break it down.
Yeah, unpack this thing. First off, Mercedes knew they just couldn't mess with the G-Wagon look.
Oh, absolutely. That boxy shape, those exposed hinges, that rugged go-anywhere feel, it's iconic. It had to stay.
And the video host even calls it the G580 with EQ technology. It's like they're really emphasizing that it's still a G-Wagon at its core.
Right.
But then they show the Edition 1, and it's in this South Sea blue Magno with blue accents. Seriously, who comes up with these color names?
Gotta love them.
But it's gorgeous. It just sets the stage for adventure.
Oh, yeah.
But the real revolution is what's going on under the, well, not the hood, I guess.
Not quite.
Because this G-Wagon is powered by 4 electric motors.
One for each wheel.
4 motors. That's a pretty big change from the, traditional G-Wagon setup.
It is.
And the video really stresses that this isn't about being a range champion.
Right.
Like the EQS. It's about precise control for off-roading.
Exactly. And this setup allows for some really incredible technology, like what they call virtual differential locks.
Okay, now you've got my attention. Virtual differential locks. That sounds pretty high-tech for a rugged off-roader.
It is.
Break that down for us.
Okay, so instead of using those traditional mechanical lockers, this system uses torque vectoring, so it can instantly shift power to the wheels that have grip. Like, imagine you're driving on a patch of ice, and one wheel starts to spin. With these virtual differential locks, the car's automatically redirecting power to the wheels that still have traction.
So it's like each wheel has its own little brain, figuring out where the grip is and sending the power there.
Yeah, exactly.
That's wild. But what about other off-road features? Because the video mentions something called G-turn.
Oh yeah, the G-turn. This is where things get really cool. Because each wheel has its own motor, the G580 can literally turn on the spot.
Like a tank.
Yeah, like something out of a sci-fi movie. Think about tank maneuvers, but with a luxury touch.
That's amazing. Okay, so I'm already picturing myself pulling off some pretty awesome moves on the trails, but is that just a gimmick or is that actually useful when you're off-roading?
Oh no, it could be incredibly useful in tight situations where maneuverability is super critical. And that's not the only trick they have. There's also G-steering for tighter turns and off-road crawl, which is like off-road cruise control.
Wow, this thing is loaded.
It is!
But with all this tech, does it lose any of that, raw G-Wagon capability? Can it still climb mountains and cross rivers like its gas-powered siblings?
That's where it gets even more impressive. The electric G-Wagon doesn't lose any of its off-road capabilities. It can still climb 100% grade, tilt at a 35-degree angle, and for even deeper water than the gas version.
Wow, they weren't messing around when they said they wanted to take the G-Wagon's capability even further.
Yes, sir.
And it's not just the big stuff, it's the details too, right? Like the embossed G's on the Edition 1 door handles, the roof spoiler for better airflow, even the hood slightly raised. It's like they've obsessed over every little thing.
Yeah, and those details aren't just for show. The raised hood, for example, it likely helps with pedestrian safety, aerodynamics. It shows how Mercedes is blending that classic G-Wagon style with what an EV needs today.
That's a good point.
But one thing that really stood out to me was how they talk about the range.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of giving us, a specific number, they compare it to climbing Mount Schuckel in Austria 13 times on a single charge.
Wait, 13 times up a mountain higher than Everest on one charge? That's a pretty bold claim.
It is.
But it also kind of makes me wonder, are they purposely avoiding that whole range anxiety thing?
Could be.
By focusing on this adventurous capability rather than just miles on a flat road.
Yeah, it does seem like they're targeting a specific driver, someone who's more into adventure, pushing boundaries, not someone worried about squeezing out every last mile on their commute.
So not your average grocery getter, more like electric explorer.
Exactly. And I think that's a smart move from Mercedes. They're embracing the spirit of the G-Wagon, that off-road heritage, and showing how electrification can actually enhance that whole experience.
Right.
But it does make you think, with all this technology, the focus on adventure over pure range, does it still feel like a real G-Wagon?
It's a great question, and one we're definitely going to have to explore more. But before we do, we need to take a closer look at some of those advancements, how they actually perform in the real world.
Absolutely. There's a lot more to unpack here.
Okay, so we're back and ready to dig even deeper into this electric beast. We were just talking about how Mercedes is using technology to not just, replicate, but actually boost the G-Wagon's legendary off-road abilities.
Yeah, and I think one of the coolest examples of that is that off-road crawl feature.
Wow.
It's like having an off-road expert built right into the car.
You set the speed and the G-Wagon just takes over.
It handles all the little adjustments.
Distributes power to each wheel just right to get you over anything.
You just crawl over anything. It takes all the pressure off you in those really tricky situations.
You just focus on steering.
Navigating the terrain, yeah.
Imagine tackling a steep, rocky incline and just having complete confidence, knowing the car is handling it all. It's like some of those really fancy cameras that have those super smart autofocus systems.
Right.
You're still the one composing the shot, controlling the creative vision, but the technology takes care of all the technical stuff.
That's a great analogy.
Make sure everything's in focus.
Yeah, and speaking of tackling tough terrain, remember that Mount Shuckle comparison?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I did a little digging, and it turns out that mountain's a serious off-road testing ground.
Really?
Yeah, it's known for its, crazy inclines and rocky trails.
So they're not just throwing around mountain names here.
Yeah.
They're making a point about the electric G-Wagon's ability to handle, the toughest off-road situations.
Right, and doing it 13 times on one charge.
Yeah.
And while they don't give us that exact range number, that comparison says a lot about, who they're targeting in their whole marketing approach.
Right.
They're not trying to reach those hypermilers, those obsessed with getting the max range. They're talking to those adventurous types who want to, push limits, explore new places.
And do it all without any emissions.
Exactly.
It's almost like they're saying, forget range anxiety. Let's go on an adventure.
Right.
And let's not forget, while we're out there exploring, we can do it in style and comfort because, well, it's still a G-Wagon.
Of course. The video even highlights the Edition 1's interior. Exclusive Napa leather in silver pearl black with blue stitching.
Nice.
Matching those exterior accents. It's a really cool blend of ruggedness and luxury.
Yeah. Oh, and did you see they have that GROR sound experience?
Yeah, what about that?
So even though there's no V8 engine, you still get those, signature G-Wagon sound.
Electrically generated, though.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. Part of the whole appeal of EVs is that quiet, almost peaceful driving. But I wonder, for some G-Wagon fans, maybe that engine sound is part of the whole, emotional connection.
Yeah,
the power, the heritage. I wonder if they'll offer a silent mode for those who want a truly quiet off-road experience.
It'll be interesting to see how they balance those two, those competing desires.
Yeah.
Desire for that traditional G-Wagon feel, but with all these new electric possibilities.
Right. Which brings us back to that question we asked earlier. Does all this tech, all this refinement, take away from the G-Wagon's raw, authentic feel?
It's a valid question. Some might argue that part of the G-Wagon's charm is that rugged simplicity.
Yeah.
It's mechanical nature. And they might see all these electronic helpers as diluting that.
I get that.
Oh.
But I also think it's important to remember that technology can be a tool to help you do more.
Right.
Take those virtual differential locks. They don't replace an experienced off-road driver. They just give them tools to push further, explore harder terrain.
It's not about replacing human skill. It's about enhancing it, making it the whole experience more approachable for, a wider range of drivers.
And who knows, maybe this new generation of electric off-roaders will bring in a whole new type of driver.
Yeah.
People who might never have thought about taking on those tough trails before.
Yeah, it's definitely opening up all these new possibilities. And remember, the video host mentioned even deeper dives into specific features on the G-Class private lounge.
Oh, that's right.
There's a whole world to explore there. But before we get totally lost in the technical stuff, I think it's good to take a step back and look at the bigger picture.
Okay, so zoom out for us. What do you see?
Well, the G-Wagon's always been more than just a car, right? It's a cultural icon, a symbol of status, adventure, capability. And with this electric version, Mercedes is making a pretty big statement.
What kind of statement?
They're saying that sustainability, luxury, and uncompromising performance don't have to be separate things. That you can have it all without hurting the environment. It's a message that, that really hits home.
Especially coming from a brand with such a rich, prestigious history.
Exactly.
They're not just electrifying a car, they're electrifying an icon.
That's it. And it makes you think, what kind of ripple effect could this have?
Yeah.
Not just on SUVs, but the whole car industry. Could this be what sparks a whole new era of electric adventure vehicles?
It's a real possibility. But before we get too carried away with predictions, let's shift gears and take a closer look at, some of those finer details, those little design touches that make this electric G-Wagon stand out.
Yeah, sometimes it's those subtle things that take something from great to exceptional.
Okay, we're back and ready to wrap up this G-Wagon deep dive.
It's been quite a ride.
It has. We covered a lot. Design, tech, all those crazy off-road capabilities, everything.
But those little details often tell you the most about something, right?
Absolutely. And Mercedes really paid attention. We already talked about those embossed G's on the door handles and the blue accents on the Edition 1.
And that roof spoiler.
Yeah, for better airflow.
One thing that really impressed me was how they put a charging port right in the spare tire box.
Yeah.
So smart.
Like, hey, we've got this iconic design element. Let's make it useful.
Exactly.
And then there's that, subtle raising of the hood.
Yeah, which could be for pedestrian safety and smoother airflow.
It's like they took every chance to refine that classic G-Wagon look.
For sure.
And speaking of refinement, they didn't forget about the inside either.
No.
The video mentioned that EQ-specific screen, in the MBUX system,
right,
which is Mercedes' infotainment setup, for those who don't know.
It gives you all the key info you need: charging, range, energy use,
all that good stuff.
And then there's the navigation system. It considers everything, like the terrain, your driving style, even the weather.
Wow.
To figure out the best route. No more range anxiety with this G-Wagon.
So even though it's this hardcore off-roader,
right,
it's still got all those luxury touches and smart features to make driving it a breeze.
It sounds like Mercedes went all out to create an electric G-Wagon that's not just, capable, but easy and enjoyable to use.
Definitely. It's funny how we started trying to figure out if this electric G-Wagon could live up to the legacy of its gas-powered ancestors.
And the more we dug into it, we realized it's not just about matching a legacy.
It's about creating a whole new path.
Exactly.
It's about taking everything we love about the G-Wagon, that toughness, the capability, that iconic style,
and then adding the power of electric.
Make it even better.
This electric G-Wagon is like a statement about the future of adventure. It shows how you can have luxury, sustainability, and cutting-edge tech without sacrificing anything.
Absolutely. It's given us a lot to think about.
It has.
So before we sign off, I gotta ask. Would you take this electric G-Wagon on an adventure?
Oh, in a heartbeat. What about you?
Absolutely. I'm already picturing myself out on those mountain trails.
Nice.
But before I start packing, I want to hear from you, our listener. What do you think about this electric beast? Would you embrace the electric revolution and take this G-Wagon on an adventure of your own? Check out the show notes for links to everything we talked about. And thanks for joining us on this electrifying deep dive.